Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Learning with PolyAI podcast. I'm your host, Damien, and we are absolutely thrilled to welcome longtime PolyAI customer, personal friend, and ultimate product champion, Brian Jeppesen, Fertitta Entertainment. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Damien.
Of
Good to see
course,
you.
great to see you as well. Great to see you as well. For those of you who listened in when I tuned in from Fort Lauderdale a couple weeks ago, I was actually on site with Brian at the Frost and Sullivan conference. Good time, great conference.
Yep, yep, it was.
Excellent.
Happy to get your
Um,
recognition there and for the work that you did. So that's
oh,
great.
nothing. Brian is of course referring to the two Fertitta Entertainment awards that he took home for his excellence in customer center operations. We just happen to be a partner in that. So, congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you.
Today, let's talk a little bit about you, about Brian Jeppesen, about your journey, about how you got into this crazy contact center industry, a little bit about your history with Fertitta, and then maybe we'll dive into a few more questions down the road. But why don't you give us a little bit about your journey?
Wow. Um, Over 30 years in the contact center space now. So started out as an agent many years ago and as a reservation agent in a hotel for Holiday Inn and Intercontinental Hotels at the time. And um, spent several years with them, about 9 years with Holiday Inn, and then moved from there to another company, moved to Houston as director of operations, and then moved into the BPO space for a little bit. So I dabbled in BPO while I was just at the previous company, then moved into the BPO space and worked for several years in the BPO space as director and a VP. And 10 years ago, and that's been 10 years. Wow. 10 years ago, had the opportunity to come here to Fertitta Entertainment and build um, a call center to handle Golden Nugget reservations. So Fertitta, um, most people know us as, Landry's Restaurants, Golden Nugget Hotels,
Mhm.
Casinos, Houston Rockets. It's a big conglomerate of over 600 restaurants and several venues, hotels, casinos. So anyway, I built the call center here 10 years ago to start out uh, with just one property and moved into two. And now we're 7, 8 properties that we handle reservations for. So
Oh,
that's
excellent.
my journey.
Great. And are you going to go anywhere after this? Is the question. I mean, you got the Rockets, you got Landry's, you got Golden Nugget. No, we'll save that for the end. We'll talk about your future at the end. So amazing. So a long time you played the BPO space, you played in the on-prem space. You've seen a lot of technology sort of rise and fall in the space. So let's dive right in and talk a little bit about the current state, or maybe even as you said you built the contact center for Landry's Golden Nugget at the time, now part of Fertitta Entertainment. Covering those properties, what as you were like building this contact center itself, and especially with your history prior, what are some of the unique aspects of Fertitta's contact center that you're not going to find at even other hospitality organizations? And what are some of the pains and opportunities that you find that are pretty consistent with particular environment with regards to your industry peers?
Yeah. So I look at what we do here. Um, I've been in the hotel booking space many years, and coming into here, getting into the casino reservations, and obviously it's not a whole lot different than other casino properties, but understanding
Mhm.
how you book casino players and how we rate players and how they get comp rooms and who that kind of stuff, and it was really eye opening to me to really understand that whole process, and it's unique in the hospitality industry. Majority of our people are calling us because they believe they have a complimentary room, and so we look at their offers and we book them based upon that, or we tell them, "No, you don't have a complimentary offer." So so, uh,
What about
so
what about those late night calls? We always like to hear about the late night casino calls that we have. Is it nice to know
yeah,
that an automated voice is kind of handling a lot of it?
yeah. I've heard some of those calls the voice assistant has handled, and some of the crazies that call in. There's some wild ones, yeah. But it's been a great ride, and we've done well here and expanded and grown, and of course, all throughout all my call center history, I think one of the biggest challenges has always been staffing is always a challenge, and
Sure.
running large contact centers and trying to staff 700 seat contact center with 100% plus attrition a year in the past has always been a challenge. And we face those same challenges here, and especially after COVID, that
Yeah.
it really expanded and got bad.
Is that part of what drove sort of these more automated focused initiatives? Did that come from inside? Was that you advising the business side, like, hey, we need to do something because they just can't get butts and seats here or what?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd looked at AI stuff prior and thought, it'd be really nice if we could do some of this stuff, but never really had an urgent need for it. But coming out of COVID, and we shut all COVID, they shut all the casinos down, they shut all the restaurants. For 6 to 8 weeks, we were just down, and we
Yeah.
decided we made some process changes while we were down to say, hey, we'll just send calls to Brian in their Houston call center to handle some of these calls when we open back up. And I said, no problem, we'll just hire to handle these. Well, I had a 40,000 additional calls than what I normally was handling before. Um, when we opened back up, I couldn't handle all my reservation calls in addition to these additional calls that were coming in. And so
Sure.
we were abandoning 40 to 50% of our calls. People didn't want to come back to work. It was just a real tough challenge. And when I shared with my CFO the potential revenue losses that we're losing because of our abandonment rate, said, we got to do something different. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, let's explore this. And he says, okay. So then I started the RFP process, looking at different vendors, looking at demos, and came across you guys.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad you're part of our family. Um, but obviously being COVID aside, previously, and now that we're kind of coming out of that, mayhem that it caused and the disruption that it caused to all industries, but particularly industries that were really customer focused. Um, Fertitta gaming, service, hospitality industry, it's safe to assume that Fertitta as a brand is pretty much customer obsessed. I know that you always talk about the customer experience. It's your North Star. How has technology in general played a role in providing pinnacle customer experience, and how's that evolving?
I think you're right. How do you make it easier for your customers to do business with you, right? And really in the channel of their choice, and technology today. There's so many other solutions out there. A lot of people choose to just self serve. How do you make it easy for them to self
Mhm.
serve? We started driving business to different channels, online bookings, because yeah, I can't remember the last time I called either an airline to book a reservation or a hotel to book a reservation.
Yeah.
People want to self serve, and I think for the most part, people want to do that, but there are still a lot of people that still call, right? I mean,
Right.
which is good for call center because we still handle that. And really, it's all about how do you make it easy for them to get through. And when you were abandoning 40 to 50% of our calls and people waiting 45 minutes to an hour, that wasn't very easy. And so we needed solutions to figure that out. Um, I looked at, like I said, I looked at a lot of different, from a technology standpoint, looked at a lot of different players in the industry, and nobody could beat the voice quality. That was my biggest thing is we've all had bad experiences with IVRs in the past, right?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I think everybody's had one where you just want to agent. I want to speak to an agent frustrated because it doesn't handle what you want it to do. And so you think you need to speak to an agent. So we've had those bad experiences, and I didn't want that type of experience. I didn't want a robot
Sure.
answering my phones. And you guys gave me a voice that was sounded just like my best agent. And we rolled with that, and uh, incredible success since then. So
That's amazing. And I do hear pretty consistently across industries that for customer obsessed organization it is really about like channel of choice. It's meeting the customer where they want to be. I wonder if the compelling piece, as you mentioned earlier about, having a casino crowd, a lot of like loyal members who have comp nights and whatnot, if they think that the easiest way to address this because of the nuances of their relationship with the brand is to pick up the phone and call. I wonder if that results in more call traffic.
yeah, I think people think that, well, we need to, I need to speak to somebody to see if I have a comp room.
Yeah.
And we've made it now very easy for them. They can check, they can log in to see their offers online. They
Sure.
can book more offers online. They can call, speak to our Poly virtual assistant. It will now look up their offers. It will look up their account. I see your offer. It'll book your reservation if your offer is available. It'll take a credit card. It'll do all that stuff for them without the need to speak to an agent. So
And hopefully they're still feeling like the ballers that they are, the big whales that are coming in. They're
sure.
talking to an automated agent, but like you said, it sounds like they're talking to a person, so they're getting that custom touch. Speaking, you had mentioned a little bit about troublesome IVR experiences, and you recently penned a blog post that we published on our website. I'll link it in the show notes here, but it calls out IVRs as what you refer to them as either a roadblock or a pathway to resolution. And, the TLDR behind it, give it a really quick read. It's very insightful. But you see the key differentiators between it being a roadblock, as in keep these people away from my agent. So it offloads or it offloads the amount of calls that are coming in versus, all right, let somebody talk to them so that they can get their issue resolved is flexibility, the ability to engage the caller and overall resolution time. And if you excel at all three of those things, you're a pathway to success. And if you fail at any of those things, you're a roadblock to resolution. Why, given the troublesome experiences that nearly everyone has had with a legacy IVR, why do so many organizations refuse to just kill their legacy IVRs?
Well, I go back before we had the technology we have today. I think um, a lot of companies tried to look at um, they had all these calls coming in. They couldn't staff for it then either. They
Mhm.
didn't want us, or they didn't want to staff. They didn't want to pay to staff. And they thought, how can we divert these calls and, and really make it hard for people to get to my agents? And so I went, yeah. And I think they think that they can, with at press one, press two, and just route you over and over. I think people became so frustrated with that process that now they think that anytime they hear some type of robotic virtual assistant, that they think that they don't want to have to go through that process.
Right.
And obviously, the tide's turning where we now have virtual assistants, just like what we've created with you guys or what you've created for us. Um, a virtual assistant that can really understand what it's very conversational.
Right.
It understands you don't have to give it keywords. Just talk to it normal, how you normally talk to somebody. It understands what you want. It responds and it helps you through that process. So, a lot of them are roadblocks. A lot of companies put those roadblocks in and they don't realize that the technology is so much better. And what you guys have created for us is a pathway to resolution for people. I mentioned this initially when we had those 40,000 calls that were coming in,
Yeah.
and I was abandoning 40 to 50%. Well, day one, when we went live with your virtual assistant, it handled 87% of those calls, resolved them without the need to speak to an agent. And so it was such a huge relief for me and an eye opener to say, wow, this technology really works. People will actually converse with this. I can get somebody was holding in the past 45 minutes plus just to get transferred to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And and now I can answer the call immediately, take care of their issue, resolve it, and get them on their way. And it's just drove for a much better customer experience. But I think still there's a lot of people are still um, they're still stuck on the idea that they have to go, that they need to speak to somebody because virtual assistants can't do what they want to do. And so it's going to come down to building trust with the with the general public that these virtual assistants are smarter than
Yeah.
what they can be.
We
Right.
actually talk about that a lot on the show. About how we're at. I wouldn't want to call it a peak, but we're at a definite paradigm shift when it comes to cultural adoption of what's capable. In our use case, it's over the phone, right? But just with regards to automation, historically, it's been sort of okay. It's what keeps people at bay. It does good enough and not the best. And now it's no, actually, to your point, they're replicating the capabilities and the brand experience of your best agent. And so that's what people are going to see moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, where do you see customer experience going in the future? Both the perspectives and the expectations of the end user, of the customer themselves, and the ability for organizations to meet that. What do you see as being some milestones or pivotal moments in the evolution of the dialogue that exists between a brand and their customer?
I think, a very good question. I think the technology is going to is so good, and it's going to get. I just look at the last 3 years where it's come, but it's going to get so good that I believe it can do most everything that an agent, most things an agent can do. Again, it's just adoption from the public to understand that to trust that it can. I've seen studies that say 70 to 80% of people would rather speak to a live agent, but 100% of the people would rather just get their issue taken care of as quickly as possible. So,
Just do it.
yeah,
I don't care if I'm talking to a tree. Get it done.
and I think through more and more as they started utilizing this smart technology that really is conversational, really can help them. I know there's people who have booked through us and have used our virtual assistant who have no problems doing it over and over and over again because it's simple, right? It works.
Yeah.
And they call in, they know they're getting the virtual assistant. They give it their number. They look at their offers. They tell them the dates, books the reservation, give them their credit card. Boom, it's done. And it's simple for them. And there's still periods of the time when I struggle with staffing, and people wait. So people know that I can get this done quickly this way. So
Yeah.
it's they don't have access to the computer to do it, log in. I just teach a robot to book it online for them, and that's really the simple solution. So.
And we're probably getting to a point where even if you did have the access to that channel and you were like, I could log into my profile, I could book a room based on my comps, et cetera, then it probably is getting to a point where it's actually quicker to just pick up the phone, talk to an automated agent, have them book it for you.
Yeah. You're driving in your cars, kind of hard to log in while you're driving, right? You just pick it up, call.
That's true. That's true. Please don't do that. Folks.
Yeah. Yes. I'm at it. Use your speakerphone, right? Bluetooth, but I'm, headed out. I'm just driving out right now. I just want to see if you have rooms available. Boom, book your reservation on your way out. Right. So
it's very true. It's very
make
true.
It simple.
Makes it so easy. I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that your voice assistant either won or was nominated for an Employee of the Month award. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. So, in one of our Golden Nugget properties, month of January, it booked, is about 3,000 reservations, took 12,000 calls, booked 3,000 reservations, made over $600,000 in revenue, for the property.
Okay.
Worked 24/7, didn't call out, didn't get sick, didn't complain, was nice every single time it called. And so,
Even at midnight, even when you had the weirdos calling at midnight, 1 a.m.
When it close to 7, right. And so I shared that with the general manager. He says, "Okay, I'm nominating it for Employee of the Month." kind of jokingly, but really I would love to have a whole bunch of employees like that, right? That can work like that.
What is the sense of whether or not the voice assistant won? Congrats on the nomination, but what is the sentiment that's coming from your agents in your contact center regarding, how the voice assistant has affected their day-to-day workflow?
So we've done a lot of things to make it easier for our agents too. When the caller calls in, the virtual assistant will collect the phone number. I mean, collect a player's number, collect their arrival date, how many nights, how many people, and if they need to speak to an agent, it passes that on to the agent. Right.
Okay.
So now it pops on the agent. The agent knows the player's information. They can quickly look it up, knows the dates they're looking to stay, look for that, and then for different dates if that doesn't work for them. But it's funny because the virtual assistant will say, "I'm sorry, I don't have an offer available for you for those dates," and it says, "Oh, I want to speak to an agent." So it goes to an agent. The agent looks it up and says, "I'm sorry, I don't have So it really so we're getting used to understanding. Okay, maybe the virtual assistant really knows what it's talking about.
Yeah, Gambler's trying to call a bluff there.
Yeah.
I feel that. That's too funny. What about the overall sentiment internally towards frontline automation efforts? Anything outside of the virtual agent being implemented?
Yeah. So we work with you guys to put and really it's our voice assistant that they're calling. We just put it on our website so it answers the same questions.
Take the
But
voice out of the voice assistant. Wow, it's so much of our value prop.
yeah, so, but now it's consistent, right? Whether you're calling, whether you're online, you're getting the same consistent answers. And so we've gone that route. We're looking at doing some additional analysis of, now we've got data of our customers, what our customers are saying to our virtual assistant, recordings and intents, understand why they're calling. And when they say they want to speak to an agent, why are they saying they want to speak to an agent? And when it's handed off to an agent, now understanding how does the agent handle that? How do we teach that virtual assistant based on how the agent handles it? Teach that virtual assistant now to handle those same types of questions and capture more, right? And give people better options to get their issues resolved quickly.
Is that adding workload onto the agents based on the current process, or is it just sort of streamlining it?
No, I think it streamlines it. Another thing when you talked about agents and how it impacts the agents. Initially, when we were taking all of these simple calls, these PBX calls, those 40,000 I talked about in the beginning, those are
Sure.
simple. People transfer me here, transfer me there. What time is check in? Is a pool open?
Right.
My agents are incentives on doing upsells when they make reservations, and so they were taking all these calls before that were impacting their ability to make reservations and do upsells. So it was impacting their revenue. When I took those calls away, now they're booking revenue and they're making upsells and now they're making more revenue
Nice.
too. So it was actually a good benefit. They all thought that was very positive. And it wasn't like, it did the work of last year. I calculated about 25 FTEs worth of people work that
Oh,
it did.
wow.
And it wasn't that I replaced 25 people. It just, those 25 people I couldn't find and
You
hire.
couldn't find anyway. Yeah. And
Same-
plus
same-
it put on the workload, the non-revenue generating from an individual perspective. Like it gave your agents more time to earn bonuses and whatnot based on their upsells.
Right. And also, I gained more tenure and more knowledge with my people because my attrition dropped significantly because that churn of attrition that you always have in a call center is that bottom piece that keeps turning over and over. Well, I
Sure.
replaced it with the virtual assistant. Now my attrition drops significantly. I gain more knowledge, more tenure with my agents. They're more knowledgeable, more helpful to my customers when they do speak to them. So it's been a big win across the board.
What about guest feedback? I mean, we talked about some of the crazy calls that you've heard. Have you heard any like positives or hadn't gotten any direct customer feedback saying like that robot is amazing or that robot's
Yeah.
terrible or who is
Yeah,
that voice?
we have it's been great. I mean, I listen to calls. Some calls people go through a full process of making a reservation and don't even realize you're speaking to a virtual assistant, right? They
Yeah.
spend 4 or 5 minutes on the call with this person, telling it thank you. I'd say, oh, can you hold on for me for just a minute? Just talk like a normal person because it's very conversational. And I don't do any CSAT on it. We could. I don't really. I know that my customers aren't waiting long periods of time to get
Yeah.
their issues taken care of. So I judge it based upon, the experience that my customers are having up front. So
That's great. Nicola actually mentioned in a recent episode, he played a call example of someone who thought that they were talking to a bot. They were making a hotel or a restaurant reservation, and they thought they were talking to a bot, and so they were giving very terse responses. And then about halfway through the call, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were an automated robot. I've been terribly rude to you, and I apologize." But they were talking to one of our agents, so it was just kind of funny to hear. Not only did they go through the entire flow, like not acknowledging that this was a robot, but they thought it was, and then reverse course, thought it was a human, even though it was an automated agent the whole time. So pretty funny. Um,
yeah.
let's get back to you. We're wrapping up on time. Last question. Where do you see yourself professionally in the next 5 years? And what individual skills or what skills like with the foresight in mind and with the future thinkingness in mind, where are you ramping up your skills as a contact center leader right now?
You know, um, I love what I do here. They're good to me and I love it. So I don't see anything really necessarily changing here, but being able to help, identify other areas within the company. So we're exploring now, obviously we have 600 restaurants. So we're exploring now, how do we help out in the restaurants? Just like the call center or reservations, where we struggle staffing, restaurants struggle too. When you call the place to go order at one of the restaurants, um, you may get the hostess, you may get bartender, you may get nobody. And so
Yeah.
how do we how do we capture more of that? So I'm really excited to look at all the different venues and the different use cases that we have here, and helping us build to make us smarter. Learning, yeah, I'm not the technical guy, right? I don't understand. I've learned all
You
kinds of
like to
new.
downplay this, but you've got more
Yeah.
technical acumen in this space than a lot of people. Okay.
I've
So
learned.
your cursory interest is a lot deeper than most people's technical acumen in conversational AI.
Well, I've learned a lot through the process. Of course, I'm also on the board of directors at the Contact Center AI Association, and really look forward to how do we help others understand the use of AI in different solutions, and utilize it to benefit both the companies and their employees across the
Mhm.
board. So, I love doing that. Love helping other people say, look, these solutions are so good. Um, and you're doing your customers a disservice, if you're not giving them an option to be able to take care of these things without having to wait to speak to somebody. So that's really, I love what I do, and I think I'm going to just keep doing it. So
Yeah,
love to work with
sounds
you
good to
guys.
me. Well, we look forward to being along for the ride, hopefully. Brian, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a great conversation as always. And for those of you faithful listeners, we'll catch you next week. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.